Well, welcome everybody to this month's roundtable discussion. This month we're talking about the YWAM structure of circles, which is a very interesting topic, I think. And we've got a really great lineup for us on the discussion this month. We've got Stephe Mayers, who's originally from England, but he's living now in Canada, but he was for many years in Europe and Spain and Scotland. We've got Tove, who's from Denmark and now living and serving in Denmark. And we've got Jose, who's from Argentina, but living and working and serving in London for many years. For those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Belinda. I'm from South Africa, that's the accent, and I am working and living in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So, yeah, to start us off this month, maybe Steve, you can share some of the things that stood out for you.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I seem to have been on a few times this month. I find it's always interesting to know that we put interpretations on teachings that we hear that seem to enable us the greatest freedom. And it was interesting as I listened to the various inputs, this word myth came up a number of times, and Lynn used this term myth. And I thought, yeah, that's interesting. And the myth was that there's no accountability above the local level of leadership. And his response to that was, yeah, there's actually more accountability in his view now than there was before. Because instead of one leader, a regional leader, now you've got a whole team of elders in an area. And he was saying, yeah, we need eldership on every level. Another myth that came up was areas are mandated only to convene. And he said, sure, we call people together, but it's much more than just calling them together. There's obviously important things that we need to do, and part of that is to give vision, to build relationships and support and trust, as well as deal with issues that arise. And then we had another phrase of dealing with, well, it was talking about castrating leadership, which I thought was an interesting point. And it's the myth of that, the fact that there's no authority, no power, and no vision in elderships, which seems a crazy thing to think about. A structure is there to serve, and if it's all authority and vision is taken away, what's it there for? You know, there's definitely a purpose. Another myth was it's the same structure but new names. And I think as we go through the whole principles of eldership, we recognize that it's not just putting the same people with different names. It's a change to team and plural leadership. It's a change to influence, not position. Thing I was going to say, probably summing up the difference from the old structure and the new structure that was started in 2014. Yeah, it's the same authority, the same accountability, but it's team instead of individual, it's influence instead of position, it's relationship and not control. And so, you know, that's vastly different. And I think, Belinda, when you, in your article, you pointed out on value 7 that says, maintain healthy relationships with appropriate authorities and circles of elders. And I thought, yeah, that kind of sums it up. And you were saying that if nobody can say no, then that's an unhealthy situation. So, yeah, there's got to be that kind of accountability that, yeah, when you're going off track, somebody is able to say no and make it stick. And so I thought that was a very, very good point. You also went on to say that it's not a question of whether we have authority, it's how we use it. And we use it with humility. And that speaks again of the importance of relationship and, you know, that pastoral care that we have for our staff and for the work.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Yeah, that's great. And I mean, one of the things that I mentioned was just how responsibility goes with authority. So if you are a circle of elders and you're responsible for a specific, like a base or an area or a country, then you have the authority, because I mean, it doesn't make any sense if you don't. And in fact, you know, you're carrying something in the spiritual that you then need to be able to say, okay, no, this is not the way that it should be done. But it's that circle that carries that authority now. It's no longer one person like it used to be. So I think that's a big, like you pointed out, it's a big difference between the individual to the team now. You also mentioned now a little bit about pastoral care, and I think that was something, Jose, that you were saying was quite important out of this month that you picked up. So maybe you could share that and other ideas that you found interesting.
Yeah, I think Caleb mentioned that in the video that I've seen, and I think is true. We need, I mean, we call it pastoral, you can call it relational, you can call it in the way that you want. And I think the name is not important, but it's to be there when people need you, you know. And sometimes now with technology is so easy. I can call people in 2 seconds in Malaysia, for example, a friend of mine that is pioneer in Malaysia, and I can call him and say, hey, look, how are you doing? How are things going? You know, simple things with a pastoral heart, with the heart of a father or mother, being there, saying, how things going? How can I help you? How can is anything that you need? You know, these kind of things, I think is so important, because people, when they pioneer in these places, they feel really lonely. One of the things I noticed in several cases, that people feel lonely. I mean, obviously, the leaders and people don't do it purposely, because we are so busy sometimes and it's difficult, but they need people that can be there sometimes, visiting them. I know it's tough. With the pandemic, it was difficult to travel and people really suffer a lot. I've seen this a lot, and I think that was something not very easy for many people. But I think now, when situation is better, I think we need to, you know, pay the price. I had to pay many times a lot of money, put in my credit card to visit a team and to visit someone, because they couldn't pay for me. I had to do that. But they say, oh, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for spending time with us. You know, these things are tremendous for especially those who are, as I said, pioneer, those who are in a different culture, you know, paying the price. And I think for me, this is one of the keys in these circles of leadership, that we need to have, you know, some of these elements that will help to have a healthy structure in the future. And also because if we want to multiply, I think we need to multiply with this leg of, you know, relational thing, in which we can feed them, we can support them. And I think this is great. I feel like very proud to see, you know, how teams are taking off in different places, and it's great. So yeah, I stop there. I can talk a lot. I'll leave it there.
Well, we'll come back to you in a little bit. But yeah, Tove, you had some also interesting ideas.
Interesting ideas, okay.
Well, interesting okay. Conclusions or things that you saw this month.
Sure. I mean, one thing in reading Steve's article, I think, by the way, it was a really helpful article that I'd love to bring into the ACT that I work with in the North, as well as actually bring in on a, you know, a European level for us to just relook at again, because I have a feeling that some may have just this whole thing about circles and eldership in this way just doesn't seem to work. You know, some have drawn that conclusion, and I think that's I think that's a mistake. I think the ACTs are meant, they exist, and they exist for growth. I loved how Lauren put it, you know, several years back. He said, I mean, they exist to go where we are not. It is to multiply and grow things. And in a sense, if you look at an ACT, if it doesn't work, then change it. It exists to grow things and to multiply things, to facilitate life, and ministry. Another thing from Lynn's article, from Steve's article, he pointed out that maybe we have to come up with another word, title, not role, but senior YWAMers or senior leaders, senior YWAMers, because when I hear elder, no matter how many times I may hear it, you automatically think a bit older, just because of the wording. And that's not the point. An eldership circle, as I understand it, it is a group of people that do have responsibility for different things, but they are operating as an eldership, so that is different than if it's just leadership and executive, but they operate together and hear God together and operate where they are best, and the elder, if you can say it like that, when they are together. So there's a forum there, the elder, when they're together, and you can be 20 or in your 20s and be there. But then we do have those that are a little bit older, the senior leaders, YWAMers, they carry a legacy and they carry the history as well, so we don't want to let go of them because they're needed. But we will have to find out how best to bridge that, so we don't just lose our memory, if you can say it like that. So I think Steve pointed out, something important there, that I think we still need to find out how to better strengthen that whole idea of eldership. That is not old, but it's something else. And Dick, he mentioned. That's to go in a little bit other direction, but he pulled out
that. I just wanted to mention as well. So when we sort of set up our act and our eldership, so we're an act eldership group.
Yeah.
But then we recognize that we have people outside that group that are sort of senior leaders or senior YWAMers or whatever you want to call it, and we ended up calling them legacy elders.
Yeah.
And mainly, and that's what in my article I wrote about, they are legacy. They are the ones that remember when we did that. And this is how we do. I mean, we've got John Hess in our area, and just listening to what he did in the, when they were smuggling Bibles, and El Akamoff, or, those kind of people, we need to hear those stories to be reminded of YWAM back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, eldership is about, as I said in my article, is about vision. It's about going forward. It's about going where we're not. It's not about staying in the past. So I just wanted to mention that while you were talking about legacy and the senior YWAMers or whatever we want to call them, but just to have that sort of in our mind that there are different categories of elders, if you want to call it that way, and not to fall into the trap or the myth of an elder having to be an old person.
Yeah, no, very true. No, there's another. Sorry. Go ahead.
I made a point too that we shouldn't use elder as a title.
No, exactly. Yeah.
And the fact that it's as we gather as a team, we take on that eldership role and we're eldering together. Yeah. And so when you leave, your title is, if there's any title at all, it comes out of your passion. So, I'm a leadership development trainer. I'm not a roving elder that has the answer to everybody. I've got a lineup of people at my door. That's not the way it works.
No.
Yeah, I like what you said, Belinda, about the legacy. I think when we build up something in these young leaders, they can exercise eldership easily as they grow, as they multiply in what they're doing. And I think this is great because obviously these leaders will listen more on other younger leaders than maybe to me, because I'm the senior old leader. So I think we need to create this synergy of younger leaders that will exercise these roles as elders or whatever name we want to put to them. And I think that is I think that is coming soon in this season. So yeah.
I mean, I previously heard like someone, I think it was Lynn Green actually, who said, you know, everybody can be an elder to somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think that what we're talking a little bit about is that eldership, like Steve was saying, it's the group that's the eldership. And so we but like a DTS staff is going to, or a leader is going to be an elder to their DTS staff.
Exactly.
Because they've got more experience, they can be influencing them, giving them relationship pastoral, you know, all that sort of thing. So we need to be careful of always thinking of elders as the old people. But at the same time, you need to be careful of, like, if someone is like a 20-year-old, you know, for them to go an elder, someone who has more experience, is not necessarily the way to go. But in the context of an eldership group, I mean, like, we have really fantastic young leaders on our act who are amazing, and we love them, and they give such good input. And I think our act would be completely different if they weren't there. So I think, you know, we can't, that's what Tove is trying to say, is that don't think of elders as old. Very important.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Steve, he mentioned, actually that was part of the title. I think it's like area circle teams, a new structure for a new generation. And I think we really need to get that, because we see that in companies, you know, as well, everywhere. Teams are forming, and young ones as well. They want to have a voice, and they have a voice. And if we don't listen, you know, we're going to miss out about, you know, something very keen. Not just young people, but you know, there's so much wisdom and creativity, you know, in team. But I think we still struggle to find out how to make decisions as a team, and that's yeah. I wonder what the rest of you think there. I think sometimes there's a little bit of ambiguity or insecurity in, like, exactly in how to come to a conclusion and make a decision in a team. I think that's love to hear your thoughts.
I mean, I think for us it makes it. Sorry, Steve.
I was saying, this is where we need maturity in that team.
Yeah.
Where you're learning how to discern and not go with your own opinion and your own strength of personality, but you're listening to the Lord, you're listening to one another, and you're able to compromise when necessary and come to a consensus. Yeah.
So the shift from one leadership style to eldership, I think there's some soft skills that we probably need to further learn, you know, and strengthen to know how to do that better.
Yeah, I think on the lounge you were talking a lot about those different sort of skills that the leaders need to have now. And I think in the corporate world, those skills are now being they're the most sought after. And I think we have them because we work in this way, and just naturally have developed them, I think, as well. So it's interesting when you kind of look at the business world and see actually what we're doing in working in teams and leading in teams is actually what they're going towards, rather than having a single boss. You know, they have a group.
Or well, many times I think they actually ahead. They got, you know, some pieces before we got there. So I think it's a time as well. It's a generation. The generation respond. That's how it is what works. That's how you get the best ideas from.
You had one more point just you said about Dick. I think about.
Oh yeah, that's right. No, Dick he pulled out 2 old letters from Lauren, you know, and I've heard them many times before. But like one being that that leaders, you know, like national or area circle teams, they should not say no. They shouldn't have. Also, just if you are a leader in London, you know, you don't have you can't say no to somebody that want to come in and pioneer. But there was this. A healthy tension. He says, like, but there's also a letter to the pioneering team coming in, you know, and that is that you should be from day one, you should be communicating to those, you know, in this area, wherever you're moving in. So, which is so true and so right. So you should learn how to communicate, coordinate, collaborate, and that's for and finally move to synergy, you know, to see. Much bigger growth and much more growth. in an area. But listening to him, I was thinking, how are we doing in passing down those letters? I know there's, yes, there's a website somewhere you can go and find it. You can Google this, and you will eventually get there. But I'm not sure how well we carry maybe the essence of that in passing that on. Some people, they've just received and heard the first letter. It's like, nobody can say no, we have a right to go, and they may not have gotten the second one, or vice versa. I'm not talking about the letters, but the essence of, of it. So I think that's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting when things are going well and you've got the right leaders in place with the right gifts.
Yes.
Almost function in any structure, but the structure is there really often to help when things are not going so well.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's where the accountability and just the ability to put things in order is important. That's within that structure. So it's not a passive structure, but it's when problems occur, you can step in and deal with them.
Yeah. And the person closest to the problem as well. That was mentioned several times.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you, everybody. This has been a really good discussion. I've really enjoyed this. And yeah, just remind everybody to not forget to go back and look at the resources if you haven't already this month, and encourage everybody to use them in your bases and maybe in your leadership teams, just as a reminder of more of these ideas and principles about eldership. So thank you, everybody, and goodbye until next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.